One. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the I Thrive podcast. It's your boy, Sundin Esperance. Today, I got with me Mr. Dominic Ruffin. Correct? Did I get the name right?
Yep, that's good to go, man. Appreciate
Perfect,
it.
perfect. So, I seen Dominic. He put a post on LinkedIn. A lot of you that don't know what LinkedIn is, it's becoming a new big thing, huh? The next best thing, right? It's a way people can market themselves in terms of looking for a job or simply, business owners who want people to know about their business and stuff. And there was an intriguing video that Dominic posted. He was pretty much himself. He was one of the characters and the other characters as well, and it was a topic on why athletes go broke. So I'm gonna just start off by let's get to know a bit about Dominic. So go ahead, Dominic. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for having me. First of all, I'm super excited just to dive in and kind of hopefully be able to pour some value into your audience. But yeah, on LinkedIn, it's just a place right now where I can express myself and be who I am. And so when you saw that video of me talking about why athletes go broke, my entire background has been based around athletics, right? So I grew up from the age of 2 years old wanting to play in the NFL, and that was my dream. I was the kid that was be doing push-ups at the age of 2, watch Monday Night Football with my dad. Terrell Davis was my idol. And, I still remember 4 years old, kids were going to sleep because the nap time of preschool. I'd have my football and all I want to do is play. My teachers would bribe me and say, hey, if you want to play football, you have to take a nap. Right. And so I'm the kid that pretend to go to sleep so I could wake up and play football.
Yeah.
My grandma would say, hey, you need to do something realistic with your life, be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, one of those things. And I say, no, I'm going to be in the NFL. Like, that's just my dream. So I pursued it heavily. I ended up playing in the NFL for, a short period of time. NFL stands for not for long. So most people don't make it for very long. And so I had to really just make a transition out of that. And long story short, finding from sports to what I'm doing now. I'm now a wealth coach. I teach people about money. I educate people on how to grow their wealth. And I also share my transition story with other athletes so they can become successful outside of their sport.
Did you ever make it to the professional level for NFL?
Yeah, so 2015, I was at camp and was practicing with the Atlanta Falcons. So 2015 was like that short window when I actually got a taste of what it was like to play in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. And what was that experience like, just being around those athletes? Because I know what you mean by not for long. You probably saw the movie Concussion. That's based on a true story with CT and all that happens. And despite all of that, NFL players, they know about it. Why do you think they continue to play?
That's a great question. And so here's what I will say is when you grow up, and a lot of you can see the individuals that are playing in the league, they came from a minority background where they don't have a great influence in their life and they don't know any other way. So a lot of them came up from a more impoverished society, more impoverished background, including myself. I grew up in food stamps, welfare, trailer park. And so the only thing that you really know is athletics, and you see on TV that the only way out is to essentially do something of value with your athletic physical ability that God gave you. You don't know that there's other ways to make money as within business or real estate or starting something of value. You just think the only thing that's available for me is to play in the NFL. And then on top of that, there comes the fame, the glory, people calling your name. There's not very many things in relation to the game of football or people idolize, right? People will literally spend an entire Sunday from 8 a.m. to literally 9 p.m. an entire day watching a single game of football. Like, they'll spend their entire life, their entire day doing it. So with all these factors combined with people, with kids growing up in a not a great environment, they wanting to get their family out of that environment, they want to be significant in value, they want to be somebody of importance, they're willing to sacrifice their body and they're willing to sacrifice everything to obtain this dream of playing in the league because they feel like it's their only way, their only hope, their only thing. If they were more educated and they knew that there was other ways to essentially obtain that same glory, to add value back, they could be of significance in the world. I definitely believe there would be a lot less people that would actually pursue the game at a high level. And they're also just uneducated about the consequences of what it's really like to put your body through that and the head injuries. When you're playing and you're having fun, you don't ever actually consider what it happens to your head and brain. You're just like, I'm out here to play ball. This is what I love to do. And that's that. So there's a lot of reasons why I think athletes continue to pursue that, even though that there are a lot of consequences. I think the more educated a person becomes, you'll see people starting to walk away from the game. Like, you'll see Andrew Luck walked away from the game. I mean, there's a ton of people that are now starting to see, I want to be able to live my life happy, healthy, full of joy, and no longer be hurt. And so you're starting to see athletes now walking away sooner than later and just completely maybe not even pursuing it at a high level.
Is there, so has like a rookie, going to the NFL just starting out? Because obviously not everybody's making, millions of dollars and stuff. How much money is there really in NFL? And I mean, how much money is there? I'm talking about including like the tax breaks for, a lot of the teams.
It's a great question. Everybody thinks that the people in the NFL are making a ton of money, but realistically, that's like a very small, like 1% of the people that are actually making a grip of money. The league minimum is around 415,000. So after you walk away with taxes, things like that, you're going to see right around maybe like 260.
Wow.
So realistically, you could probably do something in this world where you're adding value and significance to people, starting a business, doing something where you truly enjoy and you're passionate around, making that same amount of money, if not more. And so the reality around it is, yeah, you can make a lot of money. Yeah, it does seem like it's a glorious game, but you're putting your body through a lot of turmoil, a lot of pain to potentially not even make $1 million in it.
Wow. And so not just generally like NFL players, in terms before we get into exactly what you do, what should, all athletes aspiring? Like, I don't know if have you heard of RJ Barrett?
RJ Berry.
NBA. That guy's NBA. So pretty much he went to the same like middle school, high school with him. Very hardworking kid. Very hardworking athlete. Did all he had to do and grind and everything. Was drafted third. He was first round, third pick, I believe, for the New York Knicks. Very like Zion Williamson.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So they went to Duke. Him and RJ Barrett.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Nine.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so pretty much like in terms of players that just get drafted, it could be NFL, NBA, and all these things. What would you recommend to these players in terms of money? Because I don't think they get educated enough. I mean, you see Allen Iverson, what happened to him? You see Mike Tyson, what happened to him? Antoine Walker, an NBA player who lost $80 million and stuff. And so, what do you tell these players who, I mean, you grow up, you don't make obviously that much money, and then you turn 18. Next thing you know, you have like 1 million, 2 million, or whatever, something $1,000 contract. What do you tell these athletes? What message would you give to them?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times it starts even before they get to that level, because what ends up happening is athletes, kids, it doesn't matter who they are. Like I remember in college, we would get this $1,200 stipend every single month that we were using to live off of campus, et cetera. And then on top of that, athletes, including myself, we'd get another like $3,500 from the government, which is a Pell Grant that we could essentially use for whatever because we had a scholarship and that was taken care of. So you can see that there's probably like another $2,000 a month as a college student, as a college athlete, to be able to manage and do what we wanted with. You'll be able to see that during that time, there's a lot of people that were buying it on booze, alcohol, weed, Dre beats, like always spending every single dollar they had, and we're living stipend check to stipend check. And so the reality of it is, if you can't manage $100 or $1,200, you're not going to be able to manage $1 million when the time comes. So I would say to these athletes that are listening, it's like, hey, you need to really find a way to become educated before you get to that level, before you have these dollars, because you can't just naturally switch it off and be like, all right, well, when I make it to the league, when I do this, when I have this money, then I'm going to be able to manage this money appropriately, right? It just doesn't work that way. Your spending habits stay exactly the same, just on a bigger level. I heard Will Smith one time say, he's like, money doesn't change a person, it just amplifies who you are, right? So when you start obtaining more of it, it just starts to show you what you value, where you want to put your stuff towards. And so let's just say theoretically now the individual happens to be somebody who went to the league, didn't get the education. I would first and foremost say, hey, don't spend anything until you have talked to some people who are successful, who know what they're doing and can help educate you and advise you, right? And it's very, very tricky, because what ends up happening a lot of times is they end up getting in a circle and hemisphere with the wrong people. And therefore, these people are trying to take advantage of them because these individuals have a lot of money. So you'll see a lot of times that their friends, their family, their managers, advisors, they're all taking money, asking money, embezzling money, taking money away from them. And so you really have to be careful with who you surround yourself with, who you're asking questions on, who's doing what, get referrals, like ask other people's success stories. You have to really try to be a business owner within a sport now. Like your management of your money is now your new business, because you have all these different decisions. And so it all comes back to financial education. And I would first and foremost say, if you're going to go buy your mom a house, great. do that, right? If that was like your dream and you want to get your parents out of there, do that one thing that's been on your mind. And then after that, I would say do not spend any crazy amount of dollars until you become educated and have a game plan of what to do with it. If anything, what I would say is, hey, take 70% of it and push it aside and don't touch it. And then the other 30%, you can go have fun, do what you want, and do what you need to do, just so you can get that out of your system. But this other 70% really needs to be managed in a proper way where you can set yourself up for a future for yourself. So between education and coming up with a game plan and getting around the right people, there's really no other way around it besides those three things.
And so, back to it, why? So why, if it's, it sounds more of a simple structure, why do athletes go broke then? Why?
Yeah, you would ask, you would think like, hey, you're making all this money, like you have millions and millions of dollars, like quote unquote, for some of them, like, well, why are you going broke? And a lot of it is because they've never felt what it's like to be of significance, right? So first of all, okay, so when you are growing up with not a ton of money, you don't have that I am somebody type
Mm.
of image because people that are in the cars, that have the houses, that have the gold chains, they walk into the club. Now they feel important. Now they feel like they're somebody. And then you start to feel like somebody, you're like, okay, I like this feeling. And it becomes a drug, right? All that dopamine comes and comes. So you want to do that over and over and over. And you're essentially keeping up with the Joneses. So if you can find a way to not let your insecurities as a human being and say, okay, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't need to give value from the rest of the world. If I don't need everybody praising me, then you can then control your spending, first of all, right? Other things is like divorce. People go into without signing prenups. There's some political things and say if you should or should not. Like there's a big debate around it. A
I
lot
mean,
of times.
if you're gonna get married, do you think people should sign prenups or no?
So
Because let's say if
it's a
you
tough
really
question,
trust
right?
the
It's
person,
one of
right?
those things.
Yeah.
I believe with the way the society is going, that it's probably smart for 90% of people to get some type of a prenup, right? Statistically, you look, it's like what, 50, 60% of people are getting a divorce. So, and in that type of lifestyle where you're seeing a lot of these athletes make that money, there's a lot more problems, a lot more headaches. Like you're probably more likely to get a divorce as well. I would highly encourage people to get one at that phase of life if you're having that type of income. Now,
Mhm.
if you've had a woman that's been there for by your side and like you've helped build that up together and then now you got married or something like that, maybe it's a little different, right? But I would highly encourage people to get one, just from a safety perspective. Like I think it's a good idea. And so yeah, other things we talked about, like the embezzlement, the advisors taking money, like people get involved in these pyramid schemes where it's like, all right, you give me 30, let's just use a smaller number. Let's say I give you $1 million,
Mhm.
right? I promise you, you're going to get a 100% of your return on your money within, 6 months. I'm going to give you $2 million if you give me one. Well, then he was like, well, that's quick cash. That's quick money.
Mhm.
So instantly I think, well, if I give quick money, I get my quick money, therefore I can buy more things, right? So it's all about the thought process of like, I can get more stuff. So you're willing to give your dollars to somebody else who you think is a trusted advisor, who actually is going to take your dollars and do illegal things with. And then when that happens, you lose all your dollars. So there's so many different factors that are coming. Like you said, these kids that are in high school played basketball for 1 year, and then now all of a sudden they're an 18, 19-year-old kid, and they've just received a $10 million in their bank account. It's like, what do you do with that at that age, right? I mean, if you're somebody who's 40 years old and has never seen money in your life, and you got $10 million in your bank account, your heart's going to pump. You're going to freak out. Your blood's going to rush. Like, what do I do with this? You have no options. You have no plans. You don't know how to manage it. So your only thing is like, I'm probably going to spend it because that's what I know.
Mhm.
So it all comes back to why these athletes become broke is because they're just uneducated, right? It all comes back to education, financial education, and understanding these external factors of why everybody's trying to take your dollars and who's trying to take your dollars, and becoming aware of it is super, super, super important.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, back to the prenup question. Say like for example, somebody's making that type of money and whatnot, in the NFL per se, because that is a lot of money, or if it's NBA, NHL, whatever the case is. Would it be just best for them not to get married if they can't trust the partner? Because don't you think signing the prenup, that's gonna kind of get that woman kind of be like, like, because for me, if you really trust the person, if you really love the person, and because it's someone you're gonna marry, right? Spend, your life with and all that. Why would they have to? Why sign a prenup? And if they can't trust the person enough to sign a prenup, would it be better just to not get married?
I would say no. I'd say it's still a great idea to get married if you truly believe in marriage, right? It all comes
Mm.
back to your beliefs and your systems and your values.
Mhm.
But life happens for people sometimes,
Mhm.
right? There's like a statistic that says that when a child dies, 90% of people get a divorce because they can't handle the turmoil of what it's like to have that pain of that child no longer being there. So like that's a crazy life event that you just can't control. That's like how do we fight through this no more, right? So something like that can happen, or over 20 years, you guys have just changed, grow, developed. One person became something, another person became something different. You guys just fell apart. Like I truly believe that marriage is forever and that you should find a way to work through it and push through it and stuff. But there is a lot of factors why people end up getting divorces for
Yeah.
whatever the reason is. So I don't think I shouldn't discourage people from not getting married. And I definitely believe, and I've talked to attorneys too, that have truly signed prenups themselves because they believe in it, right? They understand the importance of asset protection. They understand the importance of putting these systems in place, right? So just it's like getting car insurance essentially. It's like, well, I'm a great driver and I don't ever believe that I'm going to be the one that's going to hurt somebody,
Yeah.
but I'm going to have this insurance in place just in case, God forbid, something does happen, right? It's just a backup in case something does happen, even though according to your mindset, is probably really unlikely. Just safety.
Yeah, yeah. Perfect, perfect. So then, all right, now, going to the NFL, doing all that. What is it now that like what is it that you exactly do in terms of, let's say, if it's somebody like myself, hey Dominic, what I'm saying, because you seem to be very passionate about financial education. Hey Dominic, I was an athlete. I don't know what to do now. You understand? What is it that you like help people with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so first and foremost, you start with the basics, right? Point them in directions of some financial education, right? Here's some good books, here's some good podcasts, right? We got to start with the basics. And then I think a lot of times is people don't even know where they're at, right? People are afraid to see what their bank account says, what their assets are, what they they're like where their debts are.
Yeah,
People got collectors knocking on their door, people calling them, and they literally are afraid to look at it because they don't want to face the truth.
yeah.
Right. So first and foremost, like I always encourage people, like, let's see exactly where you're at, right? Get your balance sheet together, get your assets, liabilities together, get all your debts on there. Let's see how much income's coming in. Let's see where your income's going, right? What is inefficient in our life? Do we have high interest debts that's coming out of our life? Do we have deductibles that are low where we can increase those deductibles to have more money coming back to us? It's all about how can we keep more dollars and be more efficient with the things happening within our lifestyle and our household economy. Are we paying too much in taxes? Should we start a business so we should save some taxes? First of all, we have to see where we're at. And then once I can see where we're at, I can diagnose a plan and say, all right, you aren't tracking your dollars. That's the first thing, right? You need to start tracking your dollars, where it's going. You're not paying yourself first, right? You have the whole adage, the richest man in Babylon, Rich Dad Poor Dad. They always say, if you want to be successful, you first and foremost is every dollar that comes in, you have to pay yourself first.
Yeah.
If you don't pay yourself first, then you're paying other people, the government, collectors, expenses. You're paying them first and building their dreams versus building your own dreams. So
What
if you
about
don't
to the what about to the people who, because I understand that 100%. I read both of those books. But what about the people that are constantly saying, "Well, Dominic, how can I pay myself first? Money's tight. Jobs is difficult. Like, how can I pay myself first, Dominic? How and how much?"
Yeah. I would start somewhere, right? So let's say if you can't afford anything, I start something small, like 3% of your income. And like if that's too much, start with 1%. I
1%.
think the important piece is that you're starting with the habits of it, right? The habitual pattern of saying, I'm going to pay myself first, no matter what happens in my life, is the first most important thing ever, right? And so, you ask these people ask that question and say, okay, well, what happens tomorrow if you find out that you get a 10% cut in your pay? Then what are you going to do? Right. And people are like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Right. People are smart and they adapt and they figure it out. You get 10% less pay. You are going to stop going out to eat as much. You're going to, cut out cable. You're going to cut out Netflix. you're going to figure out a way to do it because you have to. You're going to survive.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the same thing with people paying yourself first. It's like people choose not to pay themselves first because one, they don't know where their dollars are going, and two, they don't think it's possible. But if you put them in a situation where they're forced to,
They will do it.
they'll make it happen,
They'll
right?
make it
So
happen. Okay, okay. So if I
yeah,
understand, so pretty much, let's say somebody, because especially during this pandemic time, they're not getting fired, but the pay has to go a bit lower. They're gonna know exactly what they have to do to cut out this, cut out that, cut out that, cut out this, in order to keep things flowing. So pretty much, it's not that they can't pay themselves first. It's really ultimately they either don't know how or they just don't want to.
yeah, exactly. I would say that completely. They don't know how, they don't know, or they don't want to. And then I'm not somebody who's big into cutting down and cutting back. I'm
Mhm.
somebody who has a very focused mindset on abundance. I truly believe if you have like a cut back mindset, you have a scarcity mindset, where you truly believe like you can't produce value, you can't add value, you can't increase, right? And by doing that, by doing like the whole Dave Ramsey beans and rice always, you always have like a poor mentality. And it's okay to be broke for a period of time. Like broke is temporary, being poor is forever, right? So it's one thing to say, okay, I'm going to have a small time in my life where I need to cut back a little bit, but you have to have the mindset of always having abundance and growth. So it means you have to continuously reading books, you have to continuously going to seminar, you have to continuously pouring into back into the people around you.
Mhm.
You have to continuously grow, right? Growth. The number one thing I always tell people is you are your number one asset, and you have to remember that consistently. You have to pour back and invest back in yourself. Therefore, by producing your value to the world, you'll produce your income, which means you'll now be able to save more money, be able to pay yourself back more.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So now, in terms of, so you help people, get from point A to point Z, pretty much. How long does it take? Does it depend? Let's say scenario, somebody makes $85,000 a year. They have a lot of liabilities. They don't really know where the money's going. They have one kid. They're married and everything. They have car insurance and all this and that. How can you help? How long would it take to help somebody out like that?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to getting clarity, right? And so if you don't know, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right?
Mhm.
And so first and foremost, we have to figure out where it is that you want to go. So for that person, they may be perfectly fine because they're happy, they're healthy, they're loving their job, they love what they do. They may have some liabilities, like so be it. And they're willing to work for as long as they have to until they drop dead and die. All right. Success is arbitrary, and everybody's vision of success is going to be different.
Yeah.
So for that person, they could be just fine and they're okay, cool. But then let's say now they have like, all right, well, I hate my job. I don't love what I do. I'm not passionate about what I'm doing. Right. I want to start my own business. I need to get out of this debt. Right. Everybody's starting point is going to be different. Therefore, everybody's ending point is also going to take shorter or longer depending on who they are. So everybody's story is going to be different. And it's all starting back to like, where are you at? Then where do you want to go? And now let's figure out how we're going to get there. And answers and questions, that's going to decide like how long it's going to take to get there.
Yeah. So what about for somebody who wants to, like for an athlete per se, or it could just be someone general, or what would be the first steps? Like say they want to start a business. What should be their first steps?
Is this an athlete who has money, or is this somebody after athletics, or what is their circumstance?
So let's start with a scenario, an athlete who has money, but like you said, came from the hood, has no education or nothing, comes to you. What could be that athlete's first steps in terms of starting or another stream of income, like an asset, Colin?
Yeah. When an athlete is playing their sport, right, their vision is their, I mean, their only job right now is to essentially play sports, right?
Yeah.
So what I would always suggest to an athlete is while you're playing sports, focus on sports, right? Focus on athletics, focus on what's producing you income. I knew a lot of guys who what they would do is they would get money, they would start a business while they're playing. And then what would end up happening is it would take too much energy away from their sport or from their business because now they're getting spread too thin, and their athletics would either suffer or their business would suffer. Like I had guys who was trying to start their own gym like on the off season or whatever, and then it would be super stressful for them while they were playing sports because they were thinking about their business,
Yeah.
and then vice versa. They're doing their business so they can't train for their sport.
Yeah.
So I would say for a period of time, like within let's say 5 years or so, you need to stack up your cash, put it in a vehicle that's going to be safe, conservative, that's going to get you a competitive growth while you're then focusing on what's important to you. right? And then if you can slowly start shifting your energy into other ventures where you like after you've been on a team for a while, you know how the team functions, you've been part of this business. The business is your sport. Once you understand how this works and moves after a few years, then you can slowly start shifting your energy towards whatever it is that business venture is, right? And so then it comes back to, at that point, once we've done that, so we have to figure out, well, what are we passionate about? What do we love to do? Like, where do our heart lies? Like, where does the deep rooted desire of what we love to do is, right? And so it's the question is like, all right, well, if you had the money they have, like, hey, you have $10 million in the bank right now. If you weren't playing football, like, what are some things that you would do? Would you be traveling? Would you be pouring back into a nonprofit? Like, who would you be serving? Where's your heart lie? Right? Getting real clear on what they truly want out of life. And then once that's the case, now they have a resource pool of people, because when you are elevated to a level of professional sports, you have tons of resources. You have a network, you know this person, you know that person. You can start asking questions like, all right, my goal is I want to do real estate. I want to be real estate full time when I'm done playing ball. Well, now start surrounding yourself with those types of people to elevate you so you can start learning, right? I always tell people when they're at the beginning of their career, when they're not in athletics, you should work for somebody for free, or do coffee for them, or do minimum wage, or whatever that looks like, so you can pick their brain and be around them and see how they operate. And once you've done that for enough times and you're educating yourself and you're becoming your number one asset, then you can branch off and do your own thing. So I think it's the same thing when it comes to sports and athletics and people are playing the ball. It's like, hey, focus on your sport, but in the off season, maybe surround yourself with the right people, put your money in a safe, conservative place that's going to get you a great growth. And then when you're done playing sports, then you can go all in something else.
How do you find somebody to, work for free? Like, how do you, like, do you just, go on, like, because today there's social media, so you could kind of like do that. Back in the day, it was different, right? You have to kind of bump into your friend's rich father or whatever, like within Rich Dad Poor Dad, with Robert Kiyosaki. I mean, he had his friend, he had his rich dad and his poor dad. But today, how can somebody find somebody, in order to pick their brains and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you already said it yourself. We are literally in the greatest era to start a business ever, because our network, our people, all could be from YouTube, right? They could be from those types of people. If you have money, it's so easy to pay for people's time and energy, right? There's tons of courses, there's tons of people who are willing to mentor you, especially if you're willing to give them money. If you don't have money, right, you have to essentially put yourself out there, right? Produce content around the stuff you love, become an attractive character, find ways where you can add value back to people. I think it's the first and foremost, you have to find out who, right? It's not necessarily what, but who. So once you can figure out who it is that's doing what it is that you already want to do. So if, let's say, you want to become a real estate investor, you say, okay, well, who do I know is a real estate investor? What are they doing well? And if 20 years from now, if I do what they're doing, will I want to be there? The answer is yes, I want to be exactly where that guy's at. Okay, well, now I'm going to stalk him a little bit. I'm going to look at his profile. I'm going to connect with him. I'm going to maybe start a podcast and ask to interview him, right? Some of these people, they really want to feel like they're important. And like, if you ask to interview some of these guys that aren't famous, they're gonna be like, yeah, I would actually love to be on your show, because nobody else, wants to ask me to be on it. So they love that. They love that stuff. I've interviewed guys on my podcast that are making millions and millions and millions of dollars as a business and have 5 businesses and are crushing it. And they're willing to share all of their value because they love that. They love pouring into people. And if they're good human beings, they're going to love pouring into you as well. So ultimately, you just can't be afraid to put yourself out there, ask questions, surround yourself with other people and ask them who they know and ask for a connection. I think the number one thing that stops us is fear, man. If we can get out of that whole fear mentality, we'll be able to grow and essentially meet whoever we want to meet.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that, the earlier we know things, the better. I don't know how the high school system is for you in the States, but in Canada, financial literacy is not a common topic in schools at all. To a kid who's in high school, who, because they're learning, very, like, calculus and, all that stuff. In terms of a kid in high school, or in high school in general, like, to yourself, what are the skills you think should be taught in high school to prepare kids to graduate?
That's such a great question, man. And I'm actually putting out a video. It should be out on Monday, about me talking about why our education system is broken. And I truly believe that it is broken, and it's not just in Canada, but it is here in the States as well. or they're just teaching the wrong things.
Yeah.
Like, why is it relevant to some kids that they should learn geology or learn specific history, or why should they learn calculus if they're never going to use it?
Mhm.
There should be very specific things that are going to help people in life, like taxes and credit and managing money and things like that, right? And so I believe that there should be a class. It should be like a full-on curriculum that should be called life, right? Because yeah, this class called for real. Because it's like, what are you gonna really be experiencing when life is officially on, right? When you're done with school and you're having to figure it out, like, how do you find a job? Like, when you start making money, like, how do I manage my money? What am I looking at? Should I start a business? What do I love? What's my why? What's my passions? Right? How do I pay my taxes? What is credit? How do I build credit? Right? What is investing? What is saving? Is there a difference between it? Like, there's just so much that should be taught in the education system that's not. But instead, we're learning about jellyfish and learning about, the African jungle and certain things like that. Like, it's just mind blowing to me that we've created a system that's really not set up to help us succeed, which is why there's so much disruption within like the statistics of people's dollars in their bank account. It's literally like 61% of people, first of all, are afraid that they're going to outlive their money, right? There's like 60% of people that don't even have $1,000 like in their bank account. If they had to, most people, if they had an emergency where like a tire broke or their car broke down or whatever the case, they wouldn't be able to afford it. They would have to put it on credit or they have to borrow money. Right? It's crazy that we're living in a world where there's so much abundance with all of this technology, YouTube, all of these social media platforms, learning as an abundance, but we're still struggling as society for us to even make ends meet. We're still living paycheck to paycheck, right? And so on top of that, it comes back to like underlying issues of like discipline,
Yeah.
right? Delayed gratification,
Mhm.
right? Habits. Like, these are all things that kids should be learning at a young age that then can carry over to their principals when they're now outside of school.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. And it's for me. I mean, because like after finishing high school, I realized how much, I did not learn. How much, what really wasn't taught, and I didn't really. I'm not gonna say I hated it. I like to be educated. I like education, but something that's gonna help me, advance and improve going forward. And most of what that I was taught, it had nothing to do with what I need today. Like, put it like this: if paying bills came and said, "Hey, look, if you could tell me what y minus x equals, then you don't have to pay for this bill this month." I'll be the first one in that class, guaranteed. But not so. That's not the case today. So, but honestly, you have, for someone like yourself, and you have such good information. Very very good information. And a question I'll ask to you is to the point where, like, there's a lot of mentors out there. There's a lot of money, or how they call it, fake money guru people out there. How can you tell who is real and how can you tell who is fake? Because I could tell you, say, "Hey, Dominic, I have 10, 10 million, 10 making tens of thousands of dollars a week. I have 3 houses. I own a yacht. I own 5 businesses. I own, blah, blah, blah. So come in my course. That's only $579 right now. And I'll teach you how to do the same thing." How can anybody tell who is who between an actual real person who can help you, like yourself, and with somebody who's a fake guru?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there's a lot of that out there. There's a lot of people really trying to manipulate people, a lot of people that are trying to take advantage of people. And so I think first and foremost, we have to trust our gut and our intuition, right? First and foremost, if something doesn't feel right, then maybe it's necessarily not right. Like, you should at least consider that thing, like, okay, in my stomach, something just doesn't feel right. And if that you have that, like, even that thought, then it's like, okay, don't do it.
Mhm.
I always say, like, if it's not a most definitely yes, then it should be a no.
Yeah.
Right? That should kind of how the thought process should be, and not from a standpoint of fear, but a standpoint of like, this just doesn't make sense, right? Because fear can also hold us back. Like, if you know in your mind, like, man, I trust this person. I truly believe that what they're sharing and what they're giving is going to help, but I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to commit. Right? Then that's when you know it's based off of fear and not based off of what they're sharing. And so I think people around you, like, if they've worked with them before, is obviously great. Getting social proof, obviously getting plugged into their content, people aren't producing content nowadays, it's kind of hard to even believe that they're even uh, reliable source. There's so many things of value systems, right? If somebody, like Grant Cardone, for instance, Grant is somebody who over time I've learned to like him a little bit more, but beforehand he was so focused on money and greed and things like that. And where like he's like, yeah, I'm here to help people, but he was just so focused on the dollars. Like, I don't know if I necessarily want to work with somebody like that. Like,
Yeah.
when people are talking more about like value creation and improvement and growth and mindset and happiness and all of these things, and then you can see people coming in from a social proof standpoint and they're giving, then you know that's somebody you want to work with. And if somebody's giving you so much value for free, right? It's the Gary Vee mindset of like jab, 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 right hook. If people have given you enough jabs over and over and over and over of free, valuable content that's hitting, that's helped you in your life, you should want to give your dollars to somebody because you know that they're going to pour into you on another higher level.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel like you've gotten enough value from them beforehand without paying for anything, that might be another way of like, okay, probably shouldn't give my dollars to them either, right? So, those are all things of like, you can look at the bigger picture of trusting your gut, taking some time to pray about it, think about it, seeing have they given me enough value before I gave my dollars? Is this fear or is this not fear? Ask for social proof, see what's going on. And through that, you can make an educated decision on if this is the right person or not.
Perfect, perfect. Very I believe this was a very informative podcast. Those of you who are, tuning in once again, this is the I Thrive podcast with Dominic Ruffin. Talked about quite a number of things today. And it's I'm truly, glad that, I messaged Dominic because, usually for a low time podcast as myself, it's always rare for, anybody like yourself, I mean, to just want to even take the time out during their day and even just coming answering questions and educating the people, and I'm really appreciative of that. I really really am. So that's pretty much sums up all most questions that I have. I don't know if there's anything you would want to be left to say, promote anything.
Yeah, man. I would love to just comment on what you just said. First of all, thank you for inviting me and having me. I think it's an honor. Anybody that truly goes out of their way to reach out and say, "Hey, like I'd love for you to add value back to my users." Like to me, that's it's a compliment and it's humbling. And I want to be able to serve. And if I have the time to, like, I don't see why I shouldn't. From where I'm at, it was not by myself, right? I did not get here because of just me. There were so many people along the way, mentors, friends, relationships that shared some light on their story and poured it into me to help me to get to where I'm at. So everybody should be able to do the same thing with the next person. And that's how we grow and we learn together is when you've learned something, now share it with the next person, and share it with the next person, share it with the next person. Because if we decide to keep everything for ourselves and pour it in, then there's going to be no true joy and happiness for next generation, so on and so forth, because everything that we know can help save time, energy, resources, can help save people from getting into bad places. And if we can just find a way to work together, like this world would be in such a better place. So I just want to leave with that. Like if anybody's listening and they're out there and they have a skill, they have a service, if they have something they're adding value and somebody comes and says, "Hey, I'd love you to share," and you have the time, the ability to do it, you should, because that's what it's all about in this world is giving and pouring back into people. I truly believe Will Smith says it, and I always say this quote because I love it. If you are not making somebody else's life better, you're wasting your time. Right? And I truly believe that, and I love that quote, and I'm going to live by it. I'm going to die by it.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you very much, Dominic. Once again, you guys, this is Dominic Ruffin. This is Sundin of the I Thrive podcast. This concludes today's podcast. Just putting it out there, promoting jevejouer.ca. Jevejouer, it's a program of mine where I teach life skills through sports and have soccer programs. Also, if you're looking for anything serious in terms of faith wise, tune into First Church of Our Lord Jesus Christ, where the leader, teacher, and guide is Apostle Pastor Gino Jennings. If you're looking for any terms of financial, even financial services, you could tune in, I'm pretty sure, to Dominic Ruffin. And also within Je Veux Jouer, where I teach financial literacy to students in grade 11 and grade 12. Every Tuesday at 5:30 via Zoom Eastern time. That will conclude today's podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you so much, Dominic, for all the information, all the good stuff you've been able to give, and I'm truly appreciative of it. And I hope that the audience is as well. Nice to meet you. You have yourself a wonderful one, and take care and God bless.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.